Hello and welcome to Eco Girl in a Modern World. My name is Shelley and my channel is dedicated to talking about how to be environmentally friendly in a modern context. So the last two videos were kind of long and they were kind of more modern girl. We talked a lot about the fashion trends that were going on related to movies that are coming out. So I'm going to get back to the more green side of things today. And but one thing I will do is at the end of this video, if anybody wants to stick around to the end to see what BarbieCore outfits that I created that were, you know, eco-friendly, stick around to the end of the video. Or if you ever want to, there are timestamps in the description box where you can click on it and go to that part of the video. But today we're going to keep it a little shorter, but we are going to talk about a green topic. I decided to go ahead and talk about furniture. The reason that I wanted to talk about furniture is that if you're watching this video at the time it posts, this time of year you have a lot of students going back to school, so especially if you're in college, you might be moving into dormitories. Also, it is almost back to school time, so you know it's that time of year where you kind of reevaluate the furniture that you have. And this topic is actually kind of important to me because I am currently house hunting, and you know, I've looked at a few places and I've kind of, you know, in my head I think about, oh, what furniture I would put where. And I've mentioned in previous videos that, you know, looking behind me, you would probably think that I'm a real maximalist with the way that I decorate, but believe it or not, it's just that I reside in a very, very tiny space and that could change, and where, you know, the next time, a couple videos from now, you might see me with a different background. But I wanted to go ahead and talk about that. I especially wanted to talk about furniture because just like fashion, there is a lot of chemicals that furniture is very unregulated. and I kind of, and as you watch this video, you'll see there's a few mistakes that I've made with my, you know, with me purchasing furniture that I wish that someone had advised me about. So that was kind of the purpose behind this video. I just want to give everyone the advice that I learned the hard way. So we'll go ahead and jump right in. Now, we mentioned before, and I'm going to post several videos down below, but there's a fashion video by a really great channel called Climate Town. And Climate Town, and the video below talks more about fashion, but one thing that the video really highlights that I think is important that crosses over also to furniture is that, you know, in the 90s, about 50% of textiles, of clothing and furniture were made in the United States, or made in our own country. That has since from the, you know, late 80s to today, that has gone down to about 2%. And that's not an exaggeration. 2% of the clothing and the furniture that Americans, United States residents buy is not made in our country. And what happens is when we ship things, and I mentioned that in the last video, whenever you're shipping things, whenever your things are being produced in other countries and being shipped to us, that's carbon emissions because it's being, you know, flown and sailed all over the world. But the other thing is that it makes it where it's not regulated. And even if it was made in the United States, I don't feel like we regulate very much of how, we don't regulate how our furniture or our clothing are made. Our clothing have a lot of chemicals in it. I've talked before, acrylic is a, you know, when you see a really soft fuzzy blanket or a soft fuzzy sweater, most of the time that is acrylic fabric. And acrylic fabric is just like, it's a synthetic fabric. It's full of toxins just from itself, from it being acrylic. And then the dye that you use on it is very, very, has a lot of chemicals in it too. The other thing that's bad about acrylic is that when you wash it, it breaks into tiny, tiny little particles that get into our water supply and can't get back out. And that's microplastics, right? You hear a lot about microplastics. And I'll actually post a video about, there's a great other channel, ShellBizLeee. ShellBizLeee does a great video ShellBizLeee does a great video that talks about microplastics, how they get into our water supply and what you need to get them out. There's actually special filters that you can put on your washer and dryer. That's becoming the standard in France, actually, where that filter is being built into washers. So hopefully in the future we can filter it out. But ideally, as environmentalists, and you'll see with furniture too, our goal is to not put the chemicals in the water in the first darn place. If we ban the chemicals, if we get them out of the production, we're saving ourselves a whole lot of health, and you'll see in a minute how it affects human health. The other quick thing that I'll talk about with fabric, because this plays into upholstery, in a minute we're going to be talking about, the fabric that goes on furniture, mattresses, couches, chairs, things like that. The other two types of materials that also are used in our clothing, but another type of plastic is polyester. Polyester is kind of everywhere, right? And that is, polyester is polyurethane, which is it's plastic. It's a synthetic fiber that's created from fossil fuel, from gas, right? And we talk about how we're supposed to be saving gas with our cars. We're supposed to be saving gas with the clothes that we wear too. Polyester is not good for your skin. It doesn't breathe. It's full of toxins and chemicals that you hold against your skin and that you're sweating. And our skin is porous. Our skin protects us from a lot, but you can soak chemicals into your skin too. So that's going to come up, polyester is kind of everywhere right now, and right now it's really cheap to get it, but in the future that might not be. The other thing is that polyester doesn't biodegrade. If you throw it away, it'll be leaking chemicals into our ground and into our water supplies. So the same thing applies to furniture. If you just, throw furniture away, then it's going to the same final destination that your clothes do when you just say, oh, well, it's disposable, right? And it's not. And that's another point we'll get into, is that we kind of treat our furniture like it's disposable. If it's not the sturdiest type of furniture, then what do? You just chuck it, right? And we'll talk about that again in a minute. The last type of material that crosses over from fashion into furniture as well is faux leather. And you've heard me talk about faux leather all the time. Faux leather is not good. You may be saving the animal, you may be saving the cow from that. And there is a lot of chemicals in tanning leather, but there are 10 times more chemicals in faux leather than anything else. You've probably heard of PVC, polyvinyl. That's what a lot of these faux leather materials are, and they get glossed down. The production of it is highly toxic for the people who make the material. The other thing is it doesn't biodegrade. It's the same type of plastic we're talking about with polyester and acrylic. And then it's coated with all these chemicals that we're going to talk about again in a minute, that are called our PFAS chemicals, PFAS chemicals. And those are highly toxic. Those are highly carcinogenic. And they also don't come back out of our water. So this is going to be kind of a heavy episode. Gird yourself. There are solutions. This is not gloom and doom. You know me. We'll talk about what's wrong with the furniture, and then we'll talk about ways you can be better. So those are the materials that we talk about, right? Those are the materials that we both wear when you wear faux leather pants or a faux leather skirt, And those are also the materials that cover our furniture, right? So you know that faux leather chair where you think, oh, I'm being so good because I'm saving. It's not real leather, it's fake leather. It's really bad for your skin, it's bad for the environment, and it's not really saving us anything. It's probably doing more harm because of its end life, right? But this time of year, and I know what I want to stress, the modern girl side of it, is that of course it's exciting. If you're going to college for the first time, if you're going back to college, or you're moving into your new place, and you think, oh gosh, you have the layout of your new home in mind, and you think, oh, this is how I want to decorate it. And as we mentioned in the beginning, only 2% of the furniture that Americans buy are actually made in the United States. Everything else is shipped in from overseas, and it's not regulated how those products are made. So when you walk into Home Sense, when you walk into Home Goods, when you walk into Target, when you walk into Walmart, you see all this cute furniture and you're pulling out your measuring tape and you're like, oh, look at the color of that. I need this big of a bookcase. I need this entertainment center. Now, when you walk into IKEA, and it's funny, in the BarbieCore video, I mentioned IKEA. I don't have a lot of IKEA furniture, but the first thing that happens when you go in and you get all googly-eyed is that just like we are in a sea of fast fashion that's made cheaply with a lot of chemicals, we are in a marketplace of a lot of fast furniture too. Fast furnishing is everything that you see. The other thing is that even if it's not for back to school or for moving somewhere, I was walking into, the craft store, and there's a wall of Halloween decor and fall decor, right? In journalism, they always say that you're, in fashion journalism too, that you're always a season ahead, right? You're always 6 to 8 weeks ahead. And that seems to be it, just like where we start talking about the holidays when it's Halloween time. We're always looking ahead to the decorations that we're going to have for the next season. Now, the problem is when you look at those pillows, when you look at those light up ghosts, and believe me, I'm just as taken in as everyone else. I think they're cute, right? It's cutesy stuff. But, same thing when you're moving into your dorm room. When you pick up that piece of furniture, when you look at that article, a lot of it is made out of particle board. Particle board is not actual wood. So this is the first thing that you see with furniture that's mass-produced or fast furniture, right? What it is it's a bunch. If you cut that IKEA bookshelf in half, I'm guilty. You can see behind me I have Target bookcases. If you cut it in half, what you're going to see is a bunch of wood chips, like wood flakes. When someone's, you've seen wood shop videos where they cut, when they're sanding furniture, all the wood chips that come off of it, it's like not wasting that weight, the leftovers of wood, it's like you swept it up and then you just poured a bunch of glue on it, right? So what it is it is trying to use every little part of the tree, but the problem is that it's not an actual plank of wood. That's why it's so cheap. It's a bunch of wood shavings, probably the leftovers from something that got cut, just like you cut a piece of fabric, those little extra pieces of fabric. It's all the little extra pieces of wood, and they glue it together. They flatten it, they pour a bunch of glue. It's like a glue bath, and they glue it together, and that's what the particle board is. Now, the problem with that is that a lot of particle board is glued together with really toxic glue. There's very few green glues out there. Green glue exists, but most of the glue that you see out there is going to be have a lot of formaldehyde in it, like the formaldehyde that you use to embalm dead bodies. Yes, coroner level formaldehyde. Now, what you'll probably see is, so that's why, and same thing if you have some kind of lining to something, like for instance at the end of my bed when I have a little footstool, and it's a cheap footstool, it's not a high quality one. When you open it up, there's a storage area in there. That storage area has a lining on it that's all plastic or polyester, and that lining was glued down. And what happens is, you notice how there's a smell to it, right? A glue smell. So if you have any furniture that has, the other thing is those fold out backings, like the back of furniture when it looks like cardboard on the back, right? That's a sign that that's fast furniture. And the problem is it's full of chemicals. It's full of a lot of chemicals. And what happens is, just like chemicals, so any type of, particle board furniture, anything that's glued down, it's gonna do something. It's gonna cause a really, really bad smell. Same thing with the materials that we talked about. If you buy a new chair that has faux leather on it, that's probably got a lot of chemicals in the material of it, and it stinks. It smells really bad. Now, what that is that is what we call VOCs. VOCs is, I like to think of it this way. When you think of water, water is H2O. It's a hydrogen atom linked with an oxygen atom, right? And what happens when water evaporates, right? When water evaporates, the oxygen breaks away. The H2O, the hydrogen is the H, the oxygen is the O. It breaks apart and just becomes the O, the oxygen, right? It evaporates. And what happens is the chemicals in formaldehyde, it's a liquid glue, right? So what it does is it evaporates, and the molecules in that chemical start to break apart and, get into the air. And what that's called VOC. VOC is volatile organic compounds. And that's exactly what it is. It's a chemical that's evaporating and getting into your oxygen, right? All of those, the formaldehyde, the chemicals. And there's a few different types of chemicals. It's not just formaldehyde. There's a few other, really volatile chemicals that you'll find. One that you might see is benzene. And benzene, the benzene can cause birth defects. In pregnant women. It can also cause learning disorders in young children. In the metal coating, so if you have a chair that's part metal, part fabric, a lot of times it gets sprayed down with really heavy chemicals like cadmium. And cadmium is really bad for you. And the other thing is it can soak into skin, right? Just by touching this stuff. You think, oh, okay, well, I'll have clothes on when I'm sitting. If you're touching the metal parts of a piece of furniture, that can transfer, that can soak into your skin. Lead, in the 70s up until 73, lead paint was allowed. You'll probably see that, and I see little disclosures when you're signing a mortgage that says, okay, you agree to check if there's lead paint, right? Because up until the 70s it was allowed. And lead tastes very sweet. And it causes brain damage. It causes learning deficiencies. So and when you think about it, a couple of videos ago, I posted a video that talked about the level of chemicals in our clothes. Our furniture is made the same place as our clothes are. So all of that cheap jewelry, again, I was talking about BarbieCore. All the cheap jewelry is going to be dipped in lead. It's going to have a bunch of cadmium. And as you're sweating, it's soaking into your skin. The other thing the reason it's a real big danger is because if you have children's furniture and it has metal, what do babies do? The first thing they do is put their mouth on it, right? So what happens is there's a lot of chemicals, and these chemicals do something called off-gassing. So basically, as the glue dries, as the metal dries out or gets exposed to oxygen, it breaks up, again, H2O is just water, and when water evaporates becomes just O. When you've got all these chemicals, the chemical bonds are breaking and they're evaporating, and all those chemicals are becoming airborne. And that's what a VOC is. And actually in the last video we talked about BarbieCore, and we talked about how how disposing of paint is a big deal. But that's another thing. When you move into your dorm room or you move into a new place, what do you want to do? Oh, let me paint the walls. And you've probably seen VOC on your paint. And what it does is it says, you'll see types of paint that say low VOC, not non-existent. With paint, it would never be non-existent, but low, it doesn't smell as bad. We try to limit the chemicals because there's going to be chemicals, especially in latex paint. Latex is a chemical that, because that's the more plasticky type of paint. And that also smells really bad, when it evaporates, when it dries. You think about it. So when you think about it, if you've ever bought in a piece of furniture, and it smelled really bad, that's fast furniture. It's cheap furniture. And I actually, I went into HomeSense. I went into a store because you can't, unfortunately, in this day and age, and at the end of this video, we'll talk about solutions to do it green, but, just like everything else in the world, you can't, it's hard to get away from. but there's going to be a few steps at the end of this video. We're going to talk about ways you can try to do it better. Again, the eco girl side. But when I walk into these stores, it's funny, you know, my allergies start to flare up, you know, because all of the furniture in there on the floor is off-gassing, right? And you know, if you've ever gotten a room full of new furniture, you know how you're getting headaches and your eyes are watering, your nose starts running, you feel phlegmy in your throat. You know, that's what off-gassing does. It's really, really bad, especially for respiratory, right? And I'm going to post a few videos down below. There's a couple really great videos that talk about how furniture, you have to be very careful. And so when you walk into these stores, you know, especially stores that, you know, like that home, you know, like Home Goods or Home Sense that sell nothing but these kind of fast furniture, new pieces of furniture, all of those pieces are off-gassing. Because, you know, it's the moment something sells, they put something else on the floor. So you constantly have the formaldehyde glue and the, you know, the this and that, you know, letting off odors. So that room is full of VOCs, right? But, and I, you know, and it's, you know, it just is what it is. The other thing is that, you know, sometimes you see it a lot with the other types of furniture too. You might see a solid wood table or a wood with stone on top. And what it is they still put chemicals on that. They use chemicals to polish the wood. That's not a natural type of shellac. It's still full of the VOC, you know, the real toxic stuff. It may actually be, you know, a stone top, but I remember I just picked up, I saw like a geode, just like a pretty stone, and I picked it up and I felt like I had residue on my hands. It was tingling. Everything is wiped down with chemicals, right? So as I'm walking through, you know, even I kind of feel bad for the folks who work there because they get exposed to it all the time. I saw a lot of people wearing masks, you know, and you would think that it was just a carryover from the pandemic, but no, it behooves them to wear an N95 every day at work so they're not constantly breathing that in. You know, the other thing is that if you do go to a dry cleaners, you know, the dry cleaning staff has to be exposed, you know, because a lot of those, we'll talk again with PFAS in a second, dry cleaners get exposed to all of the same chemicals that go into furniture. But VOCs is what happens when all of your furniture is doing something called off-gassing. Off-gassing is exactly that. You are airing out your furniture. The chemicals that polish the faux leather that's in the polyester, it's evaporating into the air. And it's going to make your room very stinky if you have a brand new set of furniture. Now, I'll post a few videos below. There's a couple really great videos that talk about, you know, off-gassing and what you can do. And here we'll go through a few steps. But the biggest thing about off-gassing is that you see, it's funny, you know, when you're a teenager or a college student, you'll be quick to buy the cheap furniture. But if you're an expectant mother, all of a sudden you're scrutinizing the crib that you're, you know, putting out. Does that have, you know, toxins in it? Does the mattress that I'm putting in my baby's crib, does that have toxins in it? And I'll post a few videos. You might have to gird yourself a little bit, but yeah, they're the same level of toxins that are in your baby's new crib are in the bed, the new bed frame that you bought, or the new desk that you bought, or the new chair, or the new table that you're going to be living in close quarters with. Now, the reason that's so detrimental is because babies, of course, are much smaller and they're much more susceptible. The other thing is that they have to, you know, babies cannot get up and move around or open windows. They sleep on the mattress or they sleep right next to the furniture, so they're breathing it in and they have a much smaller body mass. So the same chemicals that are in baby furniture are in the same furniture that you're using every single day. You're just an adult, but you're still exposing yourself to really nasty stuff. Now, the other thing is that those VOCs, that evaporation that you're smelling, some people think it smells good, you know, like new car smell. New car smell is VOCs. It's all of that chemicals from the fabrics and from the other thing is that you can have VOCs in appliances. Did you know that, like, when you first use a toaster, VOCs, when you first use a television set, you notice it smells a little funny. VOCs are in that too. Now, I'm going to post a few videos down below. The reason that knowing where your chemicals or what you're being exposed to is important is because, yes, all of these chemicals are carcinogenic. Benzene, terrible for your body, causes birth defects, it causes learning deficiencies. Honestly, since the 90s, if you look at a bell curve of how much more fast furniture we've bought and compare that to the number of cases of children being diagnosed with either ADD or asthma or allergies, food allergies, it might not necessarily, well, we'll get into food later when we talk about GMOs. That does also play into allergies, but sometimes it can be just that you are in your body, your whole life is fighting off disease. And not to be morbid, but when you finally pass, when you reach the end of your life, the reason that you see people pass away from just simple things like a cold or pneumonia is because when you get to your end of your life, your immune system starts to ease back. It just stops working as well, and then you just succumb to the normal, things that are attacking your body. And because you're of that age, you are of the age where your immune system's just not as strong. Why are we going to pummel our immune system with, VOCs and gassing and other things, right? And I promise we're getting to the good stuff in a minute. This is not all gloom and doom, but you would be amazed. You would be amazed. So I'm going to post a few videos down below. The other thing that is really huge, so the way that you handle off-gassing, is you have to let your furniture air out. If you are going to buy the fast furniture, if you're going to buy the fast furniture, you have to let it air out first. And most off-gassing, to completely get it pretty well, aired out, would be after about a month. So, if you just unpacked your furniture, like you just took it out of the bag, out of the box, it's probably going to be exposing you to chemicals for at least 1 month or 6 weeks. So some of the solutions, and you'll see it in some of the videos down below, is if you have a garage or you have a outside porch, try to let it ventilate outside. Of course, if it's something like a mattress, you might want to put it on don't put it directly on the ground. The other thing about mattresses too is that a lot of people have memory foam. Memory foam is an old unholy nightmare, guys. It is all toxic. And the other thing is when you push on it, it is just expelling more chemicals, and you're laying you're sleeping on it for 8 to 10 hours per night. It is bad for your skin, and it will expose you to horrible, horrible chemicals. The other thing is that if you have a fire, if anything catches fire, that is all of those chemical formaldehyde, benzene, toluene, and we'll talk about that in a minute. That is ugly. And there's actually another video that I'll post below, and this is really tragic. It's sad to talk about, but the fires in California, there were several houses that burnt down, and they actually advised the residents not to drink the water at all. And that's crazy, because when you think about emergencies, they usually say, oh, okay, you can boil your water. They couldn't even boil their water. And the reason they couldn't boil it is because it was full of formaldehyde, and it was full of benzene, and it was full of lead, and it was full of cadmium from the furniture that got burned and got into the drinking water. So that is how ugly fast furniture can be. So if you need to get away from it, at least the smell part of it, is you do need to let it off gas. Now, a few things that you can also do is that you can let it air out really, really, really well, and that would have to be about 4 weeks. Now, if you are buying it, if you do buy this, so from what I understand is if you buy furniture from like a store like HomeSense or Home Goods or something like that, you know, once they put the piece of furniture out, it is off-gassing. So if that piece of furniture has been on the floor for a couple of weeks, you might be a little bit in a better place. You're not completely out of the woods. But the other thing is that the moment that piece sells, they usually put a new piece out. So, and of course you have surrounding furniture all around it that's, you know, contributing. So ideally, the other thing is that a lot of this furniture is so cheaply made that it's rickety, it's not level, you know, you know, and the other thing that we have done, and again, as consumers, and this angers me, just like with our clothes, the moment that, you know, if you buy a piece of furniture that looks too trendy, or you know, is, you know, always it rattles or shakes, or it's just, you know, you just bought it while you were off at college, and now that you're back you don't need it, what's the first thing you do? You throw it away. So that memory foam blanket, you know, memory foam pillow is in a landfill, linking all of that nastiness into our ground and our water. All of that, and believe me, I see it. I live next door to an apartment complex, and I walk by, and it every single time, and I'm not judging. I'm just saying that sometimes when people move out, they just leave all their stuff, and then what do I see? I see a full dumpster. And it's funny. Sometimes I'm looking at the stuff that's sitting outside the dumpster, and it's perfectly fine furniture. It's fast furniture, but it's perfectly fine. And where is it going? It's going straight to a landfill. I went to just the store today, and outside of that kiosk, and in my donation video I talked about you putting books into the donation bin. I saw stuff that wasn't books. I saw a framed print. I saw a bunch of window panes. You could take that to rehome, guys. You could take that. There's other places. Watch my donation video. There's other places you can take your stuff. You don't just need to leave it out in the thing. And there was also this board that you can clip things. Basically, someone who had some kind of like wedding shower or baby shower, that was all of their, you know, it was their theme for their baby shower, and once they didn't need it anymore, what did they do? They dumped it next to the book donation site, thinking that it was Goodwill. Going straight to a landfill, guys, with all that toxic crap in it. It's just like fast fashion, fast furniture burns my cookies. So the other thing, and real quick, and then we're gonna get away from the gloom and doom in just a second. There's ways that we can do this better. The other thing that happens, so you know, you can off gas it. You can let it breathe, you know, but the one other thing that's really difficult with furniture, and especially with faux leather furniture, and you know, anything fuzzy too. And again, if you watch the last two BarbieCore, we are so, like, everyone's painting all their houses pink, and everyone's, you know, wearing head to toe polyester fluffy dresses, and everybody is wrapping themselves up with all of these, you know, bright fuzzy acrylic blankets. And that is the same stuff that upholsters all this fast furniture. It drives me insane. It just, but the problem is that in a lot of that upholstered fabric, especially faux leather, there is something, just like there's chemicals that evaporate, like the formaldehyde glue and the benzene, you know, adhesives and stuff like that. There is a, first off, real quick, before I get into that, the PFAS chemicals, there were laws that came out to help ban some of these fabrics. So just like we talked about with the video about the person who was told that they couldn't even drink the water because of all the chemicals from the fire in California. In 2013, California, and I think it was because of that incident, California started to do what they call Title IV. Title IV is where they started to outlaw these chemical things, you know, like, and so basically, if you ever look at the back of a picture frame, or if you look at the particle backing on something, or you might see a little sticker on your furniture that says compliant with Title IV. Now, sometimes I get a little dyslexic where I see compliant and I see complaint. It's not complaint, it's compliant with Title IV. And that is California on a state level, because there's states can outlaw chemicals at a state level, but then federal would be the entire United States saying we're not allowing it at all. And ideally we would want, I'm hoping we get to the day that federal regulation will require it throughout the entire country. But on a state level in California, they said, okay, formaldehyde and lead and stuff like that is not allowed in these products when they in our state. So sometimes when you see a sticker on the back that says compliant with Title IV, that's a good sign. It means that it is particle board, but it doesn't have, it probably still has chemicals in it, but it's not the formaldehyde or the stronger ones that, you know, cause that water contamination that you saw in the fire. And that rule actually came out, that state law came out in 2013. But there are other chemicals. See, the chemicals that we've been talking about of formaldehyde and things like that evaporate. There are chemicals that don't evaporate. And one of the biggest ones, and believe it or not, this chemical actually got discovered in 1938. It's the same. What happens is, just like we talked about H2O as a hydrogen bond and an oxygen bond, everybody is made of carbon, right? Like our bones are carbon. And when we talk about, when you hear environmentalists talk about biodegradability, like actually going back into the ground, that's when our body actually breaks back down into carbon. Like we actually go back into the earth and our molecules, the carbon molecules, whatever carbon is connected to, actually breaks apart and biodegrades, right? And that's our end goal, is to actually create things that biodegrade and not just stick around forever. But in 1938, a Dow employee, and DOW, you probably heard of them, by accident, while they were, tinkering with chemicals, testing out chemicals, they created a fluoro, and you probably heard of fluoro when you talk about CFCs, like what caused the hole in the ozone layer with if you watch the CFCs video that I have, the hole in the ozone climate control video. But CFCs is chlorofluorocarbons. And carbon and fluoro really, really bond well. When you put a carbon atom next to a fluoro atom, they stick together. Like they have each other's backs. If chlorofluoro would, in a relationship sense, would be the Oprah Winfrey and Stegman of bonding relationships. It takes a lot to break them apart, right? If it ever happens. And what it is that Dow employee back in 1938 noticed that when those two atoms of carbon and fluoro get together, it creates a very slippery surface. They bond so well that everything else just slides right off it. Oil slides off of it, water slides off of it, nothing breaks it down. And what that became was Teflon. And in the 60s, you remember, we put Teflon on everything, right? Now, what Teflon does is it resists. You cannot break it down. Now, what Teflon technically is that bonding pair that we're talking about becomes a chain, a polymer, and that is a PFAS bond. And there are 18 PFAS chemicals in existence today. And the problem is that bond between the carbon and the fluoro is so strong, it doesn't break down. It doesn't break down. So while it's keeping all of the food resistant, it's you don't have to wash the pan, the food slips right off. It also doesn't break back down. So when those little pieces, just the one little carbon and fluoro bond gets into our water supply, it's there. It's those two chemicals together are floating around in our water. And guess what that is, guys? PFAS, PFAS, and PFOA are forever chemicals. And we just discovered this. We just now gave that name, forever chemicals, in 2018. A scientist recognized that this chemical is getting into our water, and it's very, 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 very difficult to get it out. It's not impossible. And I'll post another video down below. They actually do create a machine that can actually kind of break down a PFAS molecule, but it's almost like Oppenheimer level of heat and pressure to get it to break, to get that bond to break. And again, going back to the beginning, we don't want to be dealing with this. We don't want to be pulling this, because what happens is you can't, just like the fires in California, if you try to get PFAS chemicals back out of the water, and PFAS chemicals are in about 45% of our water supply now, guys. So if you go to your tap, if you go to, you have to, your Brita filter or your water filter is not going to get it out. You actually have to have an under-counter reverse osmosis. Reverse osmosis gets out a good majority, but not all of it. And so, and the problem is PFAS chemicals, that carbon fluoride bond, is in a lot of waterproof resistant things. It is also in fire retardant things like a fire extinguisher. So it is used a lot with firefighters, and it's used a lot in the military. And it's really kind of sad. I was watching the movie Maverick, and you know, when they land the plane and they're spraying all of that, those are PFAS chemicals, guys. That's PFAS all over the place. And it's really quite sad, because it's highly carcinogenic. It's very, very bad for the body, and our military and our firefighters are exposed to it. Our military and our firefighters are exposed to it all the time. That's half the reason that they have such levels of being sick later in life or having cases of cancer. And that same PFAS chemical, and there's 18 of them, there's actually one of them that's called Gen X, and first off, I want to petition to have that name changed, because I do not want my generation to have any association with BS pollutants. So we're going to change that. But there's 18 of them. And the problem is that what happens, and I'll post another video down below that talks about it, is that the moment we discovered that that PFAS doesn't come back out of our water supply, and what companies scramble to do is they start to say, oh, well, you know, in Teflon, in our pans, we'll just change it. It won't be PFAS, it'll be PFOA. But you'll see in the video down below, the scientist refers to that as whack-a-mole. You know, that we replace it with something else, and then we wait long enough and we figure out, oh, that's something else, that replacement one is just as bad, or is it just has different side effects. You know, same soup, different bowl, right? So what we really want to do, and you'll probably see this, you see a lot of protesters talking about no PFAS chemicals at all, ban them all. And we're actually making strides to do that on a federal level, not just in the states, you know, not just what California did with Title IV, but actually ban it everywhere. Now, where this plays into your furniture is that anything that is water repellent, so AKA patio furniture, AKA stain resistant. If you've had a t-shirt that says, oh, wrinkle free, you don't have to iron it. Guess what? That has PFAS chemicals in it, guys. There's a reason why it does that. So your carpet, your StainGuard carpet, right? You know, StainGuard, PFAS chemical. The sprays that you see, like I mentioned in my Things I Buy New video, that I had bought a pair of suede high tops, and I had a family member say, oh, get that spray that resists, you know, resists stains. That's PFAS chemicals. In an aerial form. That's really bad. That's both CFCs and VOCs and PFAS. That goes into our water supply. It doesn't come back out, and it poisons us all. So what I'm suggesting is, when you go into HomeSense, and I actually did just the other day, I walked in, anytime you see a tag, so here you go, we're going to get into solutions now. If you see a tag that says, you know, stain resistant, or waterproof, you know, our raincoats, PFAS chemicals, guys. We don't, every single time you wash that garment, every single time you wipe it up, if you sit next to that, if you sit on that couch, you're absorbing all of that nastiness into your skin. And you don't want your animals touching it. That's the other thing, is that, you think this just pertains to humans or babies. Think about your beloved pet, your beloved cat, your dog, someone chewing on it, right? Those are, you don't. So PFAS is really horrible, and it's right now it's being weaned out. But if you are shopping for your furniture, if you see something that says water or stain resistant, pass on it. Don't go with that. It's bad enough that a lot of the other, couches and chairs, they're still going to have the foam inside, and it's still going to have polyester all over it. But so let's, but basically the chemicals are all over that type of furniture. Now, and also, of course, memory foam, the special squishy type of, and you'll see it in your shoes too, the soft step, cushions your feet. That's full of PFAS chemicals. PFAS chemicals are like the lead paint of the 70s, guys. It's awful, and it's going to be around a really long time. The PFAS chemicals do not break down for thousands of years. So you buy the memory, and you think about it. You think about how often do they tell you to throw away your pillow? Every 2 years, and it's full of memory foam. Let's not poison ourselves with this BS, guys. The other thing is that, if you like that new car smell, you like the new furniture smell, you're poisoning yourself. The other thing is that, to cover up when our couch starts to smell funky because it's full of formaldehyde, what do? We pull out Fabreeze. Fabreeze is full of the same chemicals or different chemicals, and it smells like carcinogenic plastic strawberries. That is all it is. You're spraying chemicals on top of chemicals on top of chemicals. So fast furniture is a big old freaking nightmare. But the way that you get away from fast chemicals, what you can do differently is, first off, look for the waterproofing tags. If it says that it's StainGuard, or if it says that it's water resistant or outdoor, a lot of outdoor furniture is covered in PFAS. Think about it. Think about how long you're going to have that furniture. You do not want to continue to put PFAS are on the way out. That furniture is probably going to be put on sale cheap, because we are in the process right now of banning those chemicals because they poison everybody. It poisons our groundwater. So instead of buying something that's eventually going to be like the Yugo of furniture, why not buy it? Go with the non-memory foam furniture. You don't need memory foam. Regular foam is foam enough, and that's still all synthetic, right? Go with just the regular polyester. If you have a choice, there's kind of levels of evil here, and I'll even share. So, if you have to get fast furniture, if that's all that you can afford, don't get the waterproof kind, and try to. The other thing is, try to look at it. If it's like a piece of wood or piece of stone, kind of touch it, try to see if there's a residue. But it's going to be hard to avoid when you're buying it new from a fast furniture place. The next thing is, try to utilize old furniture. Like, for instance, my great-grandfather was born at the end of the 1800s, and I have a table that he made when he was a teenager, and it was one of the first pieces. He was a blacksmith, and he made furniture. He made really, really wonderful furniture. But I have one of the first tables that he made, and that was actually in my great-grandparents' house kitchen for a very long time. There's actually a dark circle in the middle of it from where my grandmother would put hot pies and flower vases. So a little bit of water staining, but I have the first piece of furniture they have, and then actually behind me, right there, is the last piece of furniture. And he actually made that bookcase, the brown one. He made that for my mother when she was in college, and he had help with it, but there's actually no nails in it. It's what we call dovetail. And dovetail is where there's the wood pieces actually tap together, and it's a very, very sturdy. That's probably the sturdiest piece of furniture that I have. So one way that you can be better with it is look at the furniture that you already have. Just like with fashion, use the stuff you already got. And because it also, even if it is a fast furniture piece, it's already off-gassed pretty well, right? The other thing is look to buy it secondhand, right? Facebook Marketplace is wonderful. There's usually somewhere local that you can pick up the furniture. Sometimes it's free. Sometimes there's a small cost for it and you have to go pick it up. But the nice thing is that, again, also even if it is fast furniture, it would have pretty much off-gassed by that with the previous owner, right? It might still, if it's cheaper furniture, it might still have chemicals in it, but at least it would be pretty aired out at that point. The third thing that you can do in the vein of free furniture, I live on the East Coast in the United States, and I was walking around. There's a seaside town that's very, very famous. It's a sailor's town, right? There's a naval base there, and I was walking around, and out front was this beautiful table, and it just said "Free to a good home," right? And I noticed that the top of it looked really beautiful. It had these really honey-colored boards on top. And I talked to the owner, the lady who, what it is the lady owned the townhouse, and they renovated the townhouse. And the top of the table was the floorboards that they pulled up from the townhouse. Now it had, and so it's the hundreds of year old, it's reclaimed wood, right? So, and actually my grandfather's table is reclaimed wood too. If you can, reuse materials, instead of throwing it away, try to see if you can reuse wood. And now there's a story behind the reclaimed wood. I did go ahead and take the table, and it's a big table. I may have to replace the legs, and I might have to buy that off Amazon. So the metal legs may have, again, I really want to start testing metal. Well, one thing with lead that you can do is if you dip a Q-tip in a little bit of alcohol, if you rub it against the leg of the metal part, if the alcohol changes color to yellow, that's usually an indicator that lead is present. So that's one kind of daily way to kind of test for lead, but just bank on it that if I'm not saying that everything that you buy overseas is cheap, is full of chemicals, but a lot of what we buy, regardless of where it comes from, is laden with chemicals that we don't even know about, right? And it's meant to be a sealant, right? It's meant to prevent corrosion, but it exposes you to a lot of crap. But I might have to buy new legs for the table, but it's a beautiful table, and I brought it home, and right now I took the legs off because the legs that came with it were kind of rusted. So I just have the tabletop, which is all of the reclaimed wood from the townhome in the seaside town. But I brought it home, and my sister saw it, and she goes, that town is so haunted. There's a bunch of ghost stories. I bet your table's haunted. And so now she's got it. She planted the seed in my head that my beautiful reclaimed wood floorboard table is probably haunted. So, but the tabletop's sitting in storage right now, so I'm hoping that it's off ghosting. If I am bringing it to my new place, so if I see any paranormal activity, I'll let you know. And there's going to be plenty of move-in videos to talk about how to do things environmentally. So again, it's not all gloom and doom. I know I talked a lot of the heavy stuff in the beginning of this video. But you can do that. Look for free things. I did also find 2 other bookcases. On that same day, somebody was just putting bookcases out on their front lawn and saying, free furniture. So check out your Facebook Marketplace. Check out your local listings. I have done a few of the Facebook Marketplace pickups. I remember one time I did feel a little bit like it was a drug deal because I was standing on a corner with money in my hand, looking around for the person to come bring me the object. So I think it's got a pretty good safety rating. I've done the exchange for Facebook Marketplace about 5 times, and it's been good. Public place. Always check out the area where you're meeting on a map first, but that's a good way, just like buying secondhand, that's a great way for you to get pre-loved furniture, and it keeps it out of a landfill, and a lot of that furniture will already have been off-gassed. Now, another thing you can do is go to Goodwill. Go to, I mentioned in the donation video, there's Restore. And Restore is Habitat for Humanity. Habitat for Humanity actually has stores where it is specifically furniture. And it is also appliances, like say for instance you redid the cabinets in your kitchen, and you can bring the old cabinets to Habitat, to rehome, and they would be resold, and all the proceeds go to building homes for people in need. I love going into that store. You can absolutely go in, and actually I saw a really cute kitchen table. It's not there anymore. It's sold real quick, but it's basically like a Goodwill for furniture, and the proceeds go to a good cause. And that's an excellent way, because now the only caution is if you do decide to get cushioned furniture, there's of course a consideration of of actual padded furniture being contaminated with stuff. You might have bugs in there, you might have diseases. So I'd be careful. I would highly scrutinize it if you're getting a piece of furniture. A good way that you can do it is if you do bag a piece of furniture, like if you buy like a small chair, if you cover it in plastic or something that's watertight for about 3 days, that usually eliminates any possibility of any insects problems. But then you also would probably want to clean it, vacuum it, especially around the crevices. But other than that, if it looks like a clean piece, of course, use your best judgment. But of course, other pieces of furniture like solid wood pieces, bookcases, I see entertainment centers there, I see solid wood pieces, tables, kitchen tables. That's perfect. And that saves you the worry of off-gassing. That saves you the worry of, it might still have PFAS chemicals, but it being used for a certain time may have a more cleaning effect. Now, another thing that you can do is, of course, buy high quality furniture. If you half the VOCs and half the PFAS that we talk about is from just buying things that are cheap. A bunch of wood flakes glued together. Of course, that's going to be cheap. I'm a little upset because just today I bought something from one of those stores, and it was only $7.99, and I should have known better, but I looked at it and it said, oh, solid wood, and what it is I have a theme of I have cardboard heart-shaped boxes, and actually a few of them I've had for decades. I keep my perfumes in heart-shaped boxes, and I saw this beautiful heart-shaped wooden dish, and I thought, oh, okay, that would be perfect, to hold my perfume. But then I looked at the bottom, and guess what it said, guys? It said, just like California has their Title IV complaint, it said something like, this item contains lead. Why is there lead all over a wooden item? And again, it's probably the polish that they used. So that's going back tomorrow, but I was a little pissed because I got that thing home and I was like, no wonder it was so freaking cheap. And that's the other thing. If it's cheap, it's probably covered in chemicals. But if you do actually drop the money for a quality piece, if you actually buy a high quality piece of furniture, and actually growing up, my mom had a few pieces of Ethan Allen furniture. And Ethan Allen is it's been around for more than 50 years. They actually make the furniture when you order it. And it is solid wood, it is hand stained, and I actually bought, and this plays into, this is advice from me to you, but I bought the desk that I'm using right now. You can't see it. I'll put up a picture, but it has beautiful curved edges, but this is my writing desk, and I never remember it having any smell to it when it arrived. It didn't off-gas hardly at all. It's so quality made, but if you actually invest in a quality piece, it is going to be solid wood, and it would not have as much off-gassing. And a lot of times the finishes that they use are a natural shellac. Like there are finishes that there's actually a natural sealant that comes from snails, believe it or not. That is completely biodegradable. It's natural. It's not chemically based. And when you actually drop the money on high quality furniture, you'd get that. Now, one other piece, I did buy one other thing from Ethan Allen, and this is going to be a word of caution for you, because I just don't want you to make my mistakes. And I'm an environmentalist. You would think I would know better, but this, about 10 years ago in 2013, the same year that California put out the complaint about formaldehyde and other chemicals, I actually bought it I bought it in February, and I think California came out with it in August. So I literally bought this chair right before that edict came out. But beautiful, what they call a red grave chair. It's tufted, it's beautiful, solid wood, so high quality made, and just like my desk, it was made for me. When I ordered it, it was created. Where I get into my tale of caution is that when they said, okay, what fabric do you want on it? And guys, I've talked about fabric. The problem with furniture is that a lot of times the fabric has to be thicker and rougher. So usually it is polyester or like a thicker kind of fabric. And I was looking at all the cottons, I was looking at all the linens, and I should have just gone with the cotton or linen. But the sales lady said, oh, look, why don't you get Sunbrella? Sunbrella is an indoor-outdoor type of material, right? It's durable, and it's water resistant. It's stain resistant. And guys, in 2013, we didn't know about PFAS until 2018, right? I got offered it, and I hemmed and I hawed, and I thought, okay, should I get it? Should I not? What if I get a stain on it? It's a lighter color. I really... And guess what? I went with the Sunbrella fabric. And guess what Sunbrella is? Sunbrella is number one, it's acrylic. And yes, I'm cringing, guys. You know how I feel about acrylic. It is acrylic that is completely submerged, soaked in stain resistant, water resistant. So it is the nasty fabric soaked into PFAS chemicals. And I was pissed. I am pissed now. I was like, oh my God, I spent a poop ton of money on a beautiful chair that was made for me, and now in order to be environmentally friendly, I'd probably have to have it reupholstered, and then what's going to happen to that fabric after they take it off? Is it just going to get thrown away? I was so mad, right? And actually, in preparation for this video, I thought, God, I called Ethan Allen, and believe it or not, they were able to tell me, 10 years later, the make and model of the fabric. And so what I decided to do is, I actually bought, I researched, and I got a few swatches for, this is completely organic cotton and linen fabric. And believe it or not, it's very durable. And so I've been pricing out new fabric, and I've been pricing out having it reupholstered. Now, having it reupholstered is going to be freaking expensive, anywhere from $800 to $1,200, and that doesn't include the fabric. I will need probably about 7 yards, and 7 yards of organic, good fabric like this is probably about $50 a yard. So I'm looking at $1,500. That's probably darn near what it cost to buy it in the first place, that chair. So my caution to you is, just like with the fast furniture, if it says waterproofing, don't do it. If it says acrylic, think about it. I know that a lot of the furniture material has to be heavier weight, but if you actually buy a quality chair, like one that is solid wood, that is real leather from a quality maker, you're not going to have these problems. Now, one other thing that I did do, and this was actually a pleasant surprise, I was so pissed, I was so mad at myself. I'm like, oh my God, the chair that I love, and I read in that chair all the time, the chair that I love is covered, is PFAS soaked acrylic, and why did I do that? How did I get sold into that? And I was actually a little mad at Ethan Allen that they weren't more aware. But I actually called Ethan Allen, and when I asked them about it, they said, oh, we don't carry that anymore. So, of course, I think they got wise after 2013, as we all did, so maybe it's nobody's fault. But I went ahead and I pursued it, just like with my Shacket video. I got curious and I called Sunbrella. And believe it or not, guys, Sunbrella's based in the United States, in North Carolina, and they were really nice, guys. I called and I said, look, I know this is like 10 years later, but I'm concerned about PFAS and PFOA, which is another of the 18 varieties of that nasty chemical. And the sales lady at Sunbrella was really knowledgeable, and she was so kind. She goes, no, I'm glad that you asked us about it. She goes, believe it or not, she goes, the variety that that we used in your in your fabric, even from 10 years ago, is what we call P16. She goes, it is not the severely heavy. She goes, it's not PFAS, it's not PFOA, but it is one of the 18 varieties. And she goes, and we have actually discontinued that. She goes, moving forward, we are going to be completely PFAS free by the end of 2025. So I was really amazed by that they took responsibility like that they answered my questions honestly. And she said that the type of PFAS, it is that carbon floral bond, so it is that type of chemical. She said, but she goes, but even back in 2013, we made it, we did independent testing to make sure that it was skin safe. And she goes, but unfortunately, you know, if you did submerge it in water, it would emit the same PFAS chemicals that would get into water supply. She goes, but it is touch resistant. She goes, it's touch safe, and it won't poison your skin. And she goes, and it's funny, you know, when I touch it, it really feels like the same type of material. So I probably am just going to stick with it. I'm probably not going to waste the money getting it reupholstered, but just, you know, guys, if you see something that says waterproof, you know. And the other thing is, in my fast fashion video, I showed you a yellow raincoat that has that, if it's like a rain jacket or a water, if it's waterproof, it's going to have PFAS chemicals. If it looks like a rain slicker or rain boots or pleather, you know, fake leather, all of that's going to be very heavy in PFAS. The other thing is that I feel like a hypocrite because I'm fussing about my chair, you know, and Sunbrella is being very upfront about it, but then I'm sitting on a pleather, you know, seat cushion that's at the end of my bed, and I sit on that with bare legs all the time, and that's covered in PFAS chemicals too. So we're kind of, you know, and just like with fast fashion, until we do away with fast furniture, we're really going to be kind of stuck with it. But it did ease my mind to know that it wasn't the really, really horrible PFAS, but it's not, it still is what it is. It's still the you know, the bonds. And again, as you watch these videos that I have listed, we don't want to be cleaning up the mess. You know, we're going to have a lot of explaining to do. The generations, Generation Z and Generation Alpha, they are going to be bearing the burden of this. And what are we going to tell them? Oh, we put all these nasty chemicals in your water because we didn't want to have to wash a pan, because we like Teflon. We thought it was the way of the future. You know, we wanted our raincoat to just, you know, the water to roll off of us, so we poisoned our groundwater with it. You know, it's kind of a dumb reason, right? I just think that we play around with all these chemicals and we don't know what they do. We don't test them, you know, thoroughly before we put them into this use, and that's why we end up with all of these, you know, appliances that, you know, that are unregulated. But so I know it seems counterintuitive. If you drop money on a quality piece of furniture, if you actually pay a lot of money, look at the same thing when it comes to the materials. Don't get the memory foam, don't get the waterproof, you know, just get natural materials, and that will reduce your off-gassing, and it would be a quality piece that stands the test of time. Now, the last thing you can do is buy vintage. Buy vintage furniture. And actually, that's, when you think about it, it's kind of like 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. You know, like I have inherited furniture from my family. I have new quality furniture that I've bought, or, you know, it's about in force. And then I have fast furniture that I've bought, that I've off-gassed. And then I do have 2 pieces of vintage, or 3 actually. My nightstand, my bed, and my dresser were all bought from a vintage seller. And guys, basically, you know, antiques, buying from an antique seller, is buying vintage, is excellent because it's basically the high quality piece that you bought, you know, being, you know, if you sold that in the future, that's what, you know, antique is, right? I'm buying a high quality piece. And of course, first off, when it's made in the, my bed was made in the 50s, solid wood, beautiful finish, no off-gassing with it, very solid. My dresser is gorgeous. It's heavy as all get out. I'm going to have trouble moving it, but it's beautiful. It's actually called, I think it's called a butler chest or something, but it's my dresser. And it matches my bed completely, and so does the nightstand. So, you know, buying quality can also be buying antiques. That's another way that you can be eco-friendly. You don't, and honestly, you save a lot of money that way. I mean, when you think about it, you know, buying a $1,500 bed frame brand new and having it be the particle board full of formaldehyde thing, or just buy a beautiful headboard for probably close to the same price at an antique store. And I actually know someone who sells, you know, I have the person who sold me my furniture. He has such beautiful pieces, wonderful store, right? And that's just another way to really, you know, and, you know, check out those vintage stores. And honestly, if you have a particular style in mind too, you know, like mid-century modern has been very big, and there are stores that cater to that, you know, that, you know, really, they also refurbish the furniture so they're in excellent condition when you buy it. But, you know, even if you're going to college and stuff, it's good to invest in those pieces. The last thing that you can look to do is, sorry, I lost my train of thought. The other thing is, I'm sorry. The last thing that you can do is, as things are off-gassing, you can clean your air. And of course, cleaning your air, the first thing that you think of is, oh, well, let me get an air purifier. Air purifiers are great, but they're still a mechanical gadget, right? And as an environmentalist, I'm like, you still have to plug it in. It still uses electricity. The other thing is that just like all technology, you know, just like your TV can become outdated, your air filter can become outdated. And you should really change your air filters every 6 months. And if they're no longer making your air filter, then that could cause you a problem later down the line. So instead of worrying about all of those little nuances, buy plants. Plants are wonderful air filters. And actually, that's kind of how I became such a big plant mom, is because I was worried about the formaldehyde coming off of my little foot table, because it was stinky. It was real stinky. So there's definitely a few types of plants that filter air really well. I think they call it a lizard plant or a snake plant. It's the real stiff kind of strong one that filters air really well. A lot of just the normal varieties of plants do it. Also, English ivy does it as well. It filters well. The only problem with English ivy is that it's a climber. So if you have it near a wall, it'll start hanging onto your wall. So it's a tenacious plant too. But it's funny, I see a lot of videos on YouTube, and you see people with like fake garlands, like you see a green garland and it's like polyester, it's not a real garland. I actually have a plant that I put next to the window, and it started climbing up the wall, and now it's a beast. It's a beast. It's a happy plant though, and it cleans my air, so we're in a symbiotic relationship. So plants are a great way to do that. You know, so definitely, you know, stock up on your house plants, and you know, I grow little sproutlings all the time, so I always have new additions that are, you know, just little, you know, snippets of the plants that I have already. So that's an excellent way to clean your air naturally. The last thing is, try not to throw away your stuff. Let's not look at our stuff like it's disposable. That would be really the fastest way. The moment that you buy a bunch of cheap furniture and you just think, oh, when I get back from college, I could just throw it away, you know, and trends like inflatable furniture, you know, and again, all this stuff that we're seeing with, you know, mermaidcore and barbiecore, the moment that you know, one of the things that I've seen a lot with fashion designers and these videos on YouTube is they say, take your time, right? You know, like I might be moving into a new place, and I have the furniture that I've already collected, right? I already have kind of the theme that I have going. Doesn't mean that I have to just stick with that theme, but it doesn't mean that I have to go out and buy a whole slew of furniture. I don't have a kitchen table yet. I can hold off on that. I don't need that right away. I can use my grandfather's table in the meantime until the right piece comes along. And so, think of it that way. Don't just go out and buy, because we do that a lot, right? And it plays into the aesthetics. I feel like we, one of the reasons that we're not so much in touch with nature is because we kind of live in this synthetic bubble. We don't go out into the world, and that is partially because of housing and other things. We're kind of in our little rooms, so therefore we want the room to be a reflection of us. And that's how we get these aesthetics, like the VS, the California girl, or the BarbieCore, or the dark academia, or the art mom, or that's where these aesthetics stem from, is because we go out and we create a whole theme. Like I remember a few years ago, everyone was doing Paris. Everything was Paris themed. So you had Eiffel Tower pillows and croissant, wallpaper or whatever, and believe me, I love, every test I take tells me I'm dark academia. So I've taken 5 of them. I'm dark academia. I like books, and I like, and it's okay to have a theme, but you don't have to go out and replace everything, because when you do that, if it becomes, let me paint everything pink, and, when you're over that theme, all of that's going to be going into that dumpster, and all of it's going to be this memory foam, PFAS, particle board, bad for the environment. So don't do that. Try to grow your theme. And, there's plenty of videos here on YouTube that talk about home decor, how to do it almost like fashion. If it's a reflection of you, kind of find your core style with it. And Alyssa Beltempo always talks about her 3 words, the 3 words that describe yourself, the 3 words that is your fashion aesthetic. And I've got my 3 words, so I always stick to that, and I follow those with my home decor too. But last but not least, I did want to just circle back, and I was trying to make this video short. I knew the moment I'm going into PFAS chemicals, it's not going to be, but it isn't all gloom and doom, but you definitely want to use your voice, use your vote. We need to vote against these heavy chemicals even being produced. We need to let go of the Teflon pan. We need to be willing to scrub a pan to keep us all, Why are we going to expose ourselves to all these nasty chemicals? That's what we have to think about. And you can do that at the time that you're looking at that tag. Look at the tag. Is it waterproof? Is it a polyester? What is it made of? Is it solid wood? So those are the choices that we can make. Now, in closing, as I promised in the beginning, I did, to circle back to BarbieCore, I did see the movie. I liked the movie. I thought there was if you go back over to Modern Girl, she had a great review of it. I thought all of her observations were right on par. There's ways that the story could have been a little stronger, but I did like the core moral. I do think that the same monologue that they have for women, you could absolutely have for men. I think the plight of men is just as strong, but I understand that Barbie is the representation of what women want to be, so of course it's going to be about that. But I did love the movie, and I got bit by the Barbie bug just like everyone else did, but of course, I buy secondhand, I buy all natural fibers, cotton, linen, hemp, and then, I buy it at my thrift store. I'm not going to have it shipped all over the place. So I went to the thrift store. I found a lot of cute stuff. First off, I went to see the movie in a pale pink top that I already owned, 100% cotton. I've worn it more than 7 times. I went in pale pink, and I came out wanting to wear the bad Barbie Schiaparelli bright pink. So I came home and I tried out a few outfits with the bold pink vest, and I think come this fall I'm going to be able to wear that vest a lot more, and those are pieces, that's clothes I already had. And I definitely liked that ring. I really like that ring, but I'm going to do it in an environmental way. I don't want to be, just buying things new and having it flown around the world. So you might get an update in the future, but yeah, I want a Bad Bee pink ring, and I'm going to look at how to do that with like maybe reclaimed silver or something like that. The last thing that I did is that I did actually have, I had a dress that I've had for a long time. When I went to prom, when I was young, the theme of our prom was black and white. They actually announced it, and I was so disappointed because I didn't want to wear black and white, so I wore a powder pink dress to my prom, and it actually has a really long V in the back, like you can actually see my lower back. And so I pulled out my dress, and it's more than 20 years old, so very vintage. And but yeah, it's very BarbieCore. I still have the shoes and everything. So, you know, wear what you have, wear it out. I did also go to the thrift store, and I saw some really cute, I saw everything that I was talking about in the BarbieCore. I saw pink stripes, beautiful. I saw a dark pink gingham one. It was 96% cotton and 4% elastin, but it was pre-owned and beautiful top. And so yeah, I saw a lot, you know. Again, if you want to do this real frilly, you know, bright, have it be pre-owned, because that's how we keep it out of a landfill, and that's how, you know, what we want to do is we don't want to be creating a bunch of this new stuff, you know. It's funny, I saw carpets, and we were talking about Stainmaster carpets, you know. I saw pink carpets, and honestly, guys, it looked like someone spilled Kool-Aid on your mom's living room rug. I kind of cringed because I was like, oh wow, that's something that I would have gotten my butt beat for if I had done that. So, you know, again, this trendy stuff, we don't have to go for it. If you don't put your buying dollar towards it, that's the way that we can kind of control it. And you can do BarbieCore without having to jump into all of this, you know, really superficial stuff. I saw a couple videos. This one video, and I'm not knocking the creator, but it was very superficial. It was just everything that I stand against. And what she did is she went out looking for what to consume. It was like, oh, okay. I feel like the problem with environmentalism today is that we're so excited to jump on a trend because it's like going to a costume party. And we don't care about the after effects. We just say, oh, okay, are we ready for this theme? Are we ready for this party? So this influencer went out, you know, she didn't have a goal in mind of what she wanted. She just went out and said, here, sell to me. I want to consume. I want to buy. And, you know, it was, you know, Aldo plastic shoes with little, you know, bedazzled little gemstone bees on it. Not wearable. You know, if you remember jelly shoes in the 80s, that thing is going to carve up your ankles, and you're going to have foot sweat, and, you know, it'll get discolored after a while because it's just straight PVC plastic. And then when your little bedazzled bees start falling off, what are you going to do? You're going to donate it, and when this trend's no longer popular, no one's going to buy it. It's going to get thrown away. So again, you know, I'm not trying to be gloom and doom, but when it comes to BarbieCore, when it comes to furniture, think about where it's going to be once we're done with it, and try to make it last, right? So, but I hope you guys enjoyed. I know this was super long, but I will, moving forward, we're going to try to make these shorter, but, you know, some of the videos get a little in-depth. But if you like what you see here on this channel, please like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.